On July 31st, 1981, 33-year-old Pedro Alonso Lopez pled guilty in an Ecuadorian court to the murders of 57 girls. He was now imprisoned in the town of Ambato. There, he agreed to be interviewed by a local reporter.
I can declare I, Pedro Alonso Lopez, author of these acts, declare myself guilty.
Throughout the interview, Lopez tried to explain his crimes. First, he claimed that he was a killer because of the sexual and physical abuse he had suffered as a child.
I, Pedro Alonso Lopez, who supposedly eliminated a small group of insignificants and allegedly took away their innocence. But my innocence has been taken away from me.
I think that it did have something to do with the way he constructed in his head what sex or sexual relations are. If it's always forced on you, if it's always through violence, and if you receive it in your own life, why not repeat it with somebody else?
But psychologists believe Lopez's brutal crimes also satisfied another twisted desire.
Uno de los motivos por los cuales él tenía que matarlas era porque eran pobres.
One of the reasons he said he killed them was because they were poor.
Tal vez le parecía
Maybe he found them ugly or useless and he tried to stomp out the weakness.
quitarle al mundo esa parte.
This allows them to feel stronger, bigger.
Se sentir un poquito más grande.
He was always an unimportant person. He was living on the streets. He had no recognition, no social recognition whatsoever. And this was a moment for him to be big, to show the world what he was doing.
Curiously, Lopez spoke of his victims as if he cared about them and believed he'd saved them from a life of misery.
He thinks that he had to save the girls from poverty. He calls them my muñequitas, my dolls. He even tries to talk about them as if he feels he's saving them, that he has a mission.
On other occasions, Lopez blamed an alternate personality called Jorge Patiño for the murders.
¿Cuántas violaciones realmente cometió Pedro Alonso?
Yo no cometía, yo estoy implicado como cómplice. Claro que participé en el hecho, pero me tenía sugestionado bajo amenaza de muerte, que si lo delataba, que él me mataba.
Pero Jorge Patiño eres tú mismo, decía.
No, padre, yo soy Pedro Alonso López para servirle.
While in prison, Lopez underwent a psychological evaluation. It was determined that he was a sociopath, that he suffered from an antisocial personality disorder.
He does not consciously know right from wrong, and he does not feel guilty or remorseful for what he does.
He is not able of understanding other people's pain or feelings, that what he does is for his own pleasure, without any concern of the other person.
But are his statements signs of a pathology or merely of a cruel and calculating mind?
You asked me if I felt anything while asphyxiating certain persons. Well, no. It's strange, no? Someone who shoots another with a gun and the other person feels the pain of the bullet. Is the shooter going to feel the same agony or the same pain?
Lopez was very good at using his words to manipulate others.
People with personality disorders are very smart, and they use their language in a way to try to justify their actions very well. They're very skillful. A person that has a personality disorder, that has contact with reality, is going to be much more careful, because even though he doesn't care about his victim, he doesn't want to be caught.
And he was aware that the laws of Ecuador would protect him. He knew that it didn't matter how many girls he killed. The law did not allow for consecutive sentences.
Even if you kill 1 or 1,000, it's 16 years.
Lopez was right. His sentence amounted to 4 months for every girl he murdered.
The fact that he only got 16 years, that's not justice. A fair sentence would have been life in prison.
The authorities and the laws are terrible. They should have seen it was a special case. They didn't do it.
After 2 years in prison in Ambato, Lopez was transferred to the Garcia Moreno, a prison in Quito, Ecuador. He was kept in Pabellon D, the wing reserved for murderers and rapists. Lopez passed his days alone, smoking bazuco, scribbling in a diary, and carving coins with Jesus on one side and the devil on the other.
I have always lived in poverty, and I have ambition being powerful one day, or of great importance. I understand what I have done. There is no going back.
He served his time patiently. He would be a free man by his 50th birthday, and soon be able to wander the countryside again. On August 31st, 1994, serial killer Pedro Alonso Lopez was released from the Garcia Moreno prison after serving 14 years of a 16-year sentence. He was released 2 years early for good behavior.
Because of his conduct, they pardoned him a few years and he got out. And he got out when he was still very young, 45 years old.
The parents of the murdered girls were devastated by the length of Lopez's sentence, and many people thought someone should take the law into their own hands.
I wanted revenge. I wanted to break him into pieces because he killed my baby.
My friends gathered wood so I could try and burn him alive.
Era tanta la furia
There was so much rage. The people asked the president of the country for a reform of the laws.
But the victims' families would have no chance to seek vengeance because Lopez's stay in Ecuador was short-lived. He was detained just 1 hour after he was released. The superintendent of the province had ordered him back into custody so that he could be deported to Colombia.
Usted es extranjero y si usted no tiene la documentación en regla, yo no puedo ponerle en libertad.
The next day, on September 1st, Ecuadorian immigration officials handed Lopez over to Colombian authorities at the Rumicacha International Bridge at the border of the two countries. One of the most prolific serial killers in history was home.
The high authorities, judges, never do justice for the poor person. They always do it against the poor people. Those of us who have a house, a family, we have to take care of ourselves and look out for ourselves.
Yo derogaría a las leyes del Ecuador. I would ask those who make the laws, judges, lawmakers, to work for the humble people and the poor people. I would ask that they do justice and protect everyone so this kind of crimes never happen again.
Authorities feared Lopez would continue killing people. The Colombian DAS, the country's national security department, would not allow him to roam at will. Shortly after his arrival in Colombia, DAS officials picked him up, processed him, and then handed him over to prosecutors in the Colombian state of Tolima. There, prosecutors hoped to take advantage of the country's harsher laws and put Lopez away for good. Lopez was charged with a 2 decades-old murder case. Back in December 1979, Lopez had traveled to Espinal. Within a month, 12-year-old Flor Sanchez disappeared. Her body had been found half buried in a rural area near the city. Her mother, Alba Sanchez, identified her daughter's remains later that day at the police station.
I entered and they said, "Inspect the clothes. Maybe there's a little dress." Yes, it was my daughter.
The murder seemed to match Lopez's pattern, and Colombian authorities had more